How are you guys doing? Today is Monday, January 4th, 2021 out here in this quarantine. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, with the 2020/21 NFL season being done, as having been completed as of yesterday, January 3rd, 2021. I think before I go into making my pieces specifically about the playoffs, I think it's worth noting just how the regular season teams finished off. The teams that didn't make the playoffs in terms of how they're going to, in terms of where they're going to pick for the NFL draft and where they currently stand right now. I'm just going to go through that incredibly quickly just to show you where the 2020 draft, where the 2021 draft is set from picks number 1 through number 18. And I guess, starting from the top, the number 1 pick this season went to the Jacksonville Jaguars, who finished 1-15. They finished with the worst record in football, which was originally going to the Jets because the Jets hadn't won their first 13 games of the season. But by winning 2 of their last 3 games, they were able to drop below the Jaguars. As now the Jaguars have sole position to make a grab at either, Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields at that position, because they have this would be the chance for them to grab the quarterback of their future. And the second pick at 2-14 will be the New York Jets, who already have Sam Darnold. They just have a very, very young team around him. More than likely, they're probably going to stick with their young quarterback. He hasn't been there long. I imagine they're going to put help around him, or they could see either the remainder of Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields as a great player that you can put in your system that they could eventually just draft and then just trade Sam Darnold, which I'm pretty sure they already did with Josh Rosen. But with that said, the New York Jets have the 2nd overall pick in the 2021 NFL draft, so that's going to be it's going to be very interesting to see what happens, because the Jacksonville Jaguars and New York Jets franchises might be changed for the rest of their histories. With the 3rd pick, it'll be the 4-12 Houston Texans, who had the player who finished with the league lead in passing yards for the season, Deshaun Watson. I imagine the Houston Texans, if the quarterbacks, they're definitely not going to take one of the quarterbacks if it falls to them. So more than likely they're probably going to find someone to help on defense or someone to help on the offensive line, because Deshaun Watson's been getting sacked. But with the number 3 overall pick, the Houston Texans, that is perfect position for them to see if they can build up with blocks in the future, because of course with them having the 3rd pick, they also have early 2nd and 3rd and 4th round picks as well. Finishing with the 4th pick in the NFL draft alongside the Houston Texans with a 4-12 record would be the Atlanta Falcons, who actually have a pretty talented roster themselves. It's just that their offensive line just probably needs some tweaking, and they definitely need some help on the defensive side. I imagine the Falcons are probably going to get the best defensive prospect in the draft that would probably fall to them, or maybe a running back. I have no idea as to what they're going to do, but they still have high 2nd and 3rd and 4th round picks which they could use on position players. But I have no idea what the Falcons are going to do. But sitting with the 4th pick, they can most likely draft the Hall of Famer as well, because NFL drafts run pretty deep, especially in the 1st round. Finishing with the 5th worst record in the NFL, of course, tied with it are the Cincinnati Bengals, and the team that they tied with, the Eagles. The Bengals will finish with the 5th pick, as they currently have Joe Burrow, and Joe Burrow kept getting sacked, so I imagine that they're going to get someone on the offensive line to help Joe Burrow, or they're going to get someone on the defensive line. Either way, the 5th pick is a great pick for them, and the Philadelphia Eagles at 11-1 could most definitely use a draft pick here to see if they can turn around their losing woes for a bit and see if they can bounce right back up next season. Finishing with the 7th pick in the draft, going into the 2021 NFL draft, the 7th pick will belong to the Denver Broncos, who finished with a 5-11 record. I imagine they're either going to get Drew Lock some help, or they're going to replace Drew Lock. I have no idea as to how that's going to go. They might even get an offensive lineman. I imagine they're probably going to get Drew Lock's replacement to see if they can get the quarterback of their future. 8th overall will be the Carolina Panthers, sitting at 5-11, and even though they have Teddy Bridgewater and have him locked up under contract, I can see them possibly getting his replacement. But even if they get someone on the defensive side of the ball or a position player, 8th is a great place to pick. And then 9th, also finishing with a 5-11 record, you have the Detroit Lions. And then rounding out the 10th round, you'll have the 6-10 San Francisco 49ers, who are coming off of an injury-riddled season. And 2 years ago, they were in the Super Bowl. So that means you can kind of add another great player to this young core of elite players, or just really, really, really talented players. And and the San Francisco 49ers could be right back next season. Now, I don't want to say thanks to their injuries, but in response to them being very injury-riddled this season. Going into the 2021 NFL Draft, the New York Giants will have the 11th pick because the Dallas Cowboys held the tiebreaker over them. So the Cowboys will have the 12th pick, as the Giants will have the 11th pick. Going in, I imagine the Giants are definitely going to find pieces to put around Daniel Jones, as Daniel Jones is one of their newest installments. He's one of their newest pieces, and he's actually not that terrible of an athlete, not that terrible of a quarterback when you really give him the weapons to use. And Saquon Barkley will be next. He will be back this upcoming season, so it'll be interesting to see what the New York Giants do with this pick. And also at 6-10, but with the 12th pick, the Dallas Cowboys are going in after a very injury-riddled season. I could see them possibly bolstering their offensive line back up to see if they can get Ezekiel Elliott to be more effective in there, or they can get someone to help bolster their defense, to help their defense look as strong as their offense. Sitting with the 13th pick at 7-9, you have the Minnesota Vikings, who's already hit a home run with their last rookie pick with Justin Jefferson. It'll be interesting to see what they do with this pick, to see if they use it on their defense or their offense, because the 13th overall pick that's still a pick where you're definitely going to get an instant contributor at the next level, probably in this first season. Finishing with the 14th pick, going in, this will be the first time Bill Belichick has had a pick this high in probably 2 decades, because he's been in the playoffs so much. So it'll be interesting to see what the New England Patriots do with their first lottery pick, basically. Their first top 16, their first number 14 pick in a very, very long time. So this will be our chance to see what Bill Belichick does as someone that drafts with a good amount of prospects readily available on the board. Then going into the 2021 NFL Draft, the 15th pick will belong to the Los Angeles Chargers, a team with a very, very young core, which also had Derwin James out to injury. So I think that they're probably going to put more pieces around Justin Herbert, whether it be a wide receiver, a running back. I think that would probably be the smartest option. They could, of course, use it on their offensive line to help give this man some protection. And going into the 2021 NFL Draft, the 16th pick will belong to the Arizona Cardinals, who still have Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins and a very potent offense. I imagine they're probably just going to give him some. They're probably just going to help bolster out the defensive side a little bit, if not give Kyler Murray possibly another weapon. I have no idea what the Cardinals need, but the 16th pick is still a good one. The 17th pick will belong to the Las Vegas Raiders following their 8-8 season, where they finished runners-up in their own division but still couldn't make the playoffs. And then 18th will belong to the Miami Dolphins, who actually finished 10-6. But let's see what they do with this first pick after seeing what Tua Tagovailoa can do in his first half season with the Miami Dolphins. With that said, that's what the NFL draft picture is looking like as of right now. Before we go to the playoffs, before any team is eliminated, these are the 18 teams that didn't make it all the way through, and we are going to see how where they finished in the season in 2020 impacts the trajectory of their franchise over the next few seasons. Like, there are playoff teams within the top 10, like the Atlanta Falcons, the Houston Texans, and the San Francisco 49ers that could jump right back up into being a playoff team next year with the right pick. So, and of course, the Jaguars and the Jets may end up with 2 possible future NFL greats as their starting quarterbacks due to what happened this year. So it's very interesting at the end of the season just to see what draft order looks like going in, because of course there's going to be combines, which of course they're going to be different. They're going to be workouts. I'm pretty sure it's going to be similar to what it was last year. But I'm very curious to see what's going to happen with college football this year, or what's going to happen with the NFL draft this year. But going into the 2021 NFL draft, there are a lot of teams that can come out of this looking really, really great. But with that said, I want to thank you once again for listening to this piece. And from now on, after this piece, the remaining pieces for the 2020 NFL season will be either based on the awards or just based off the playoffs, because this is the last time I will mention the teams that did not make the playoffs for the remainder of this season. With that said, all of these teams put up great seasons. But at the end of the day, only one team can win, and only 14 teams can compete for the championship. And these teams sadly did not make the cut. The Miami Dolphins had the best record out of any of the teams that didn't make the playoffs, finishing 10-6. Good job to the Las Vegas Raiders and Arizona Cardinals for not finishing with losing records. The Chargers, the New England Patriots, and the Minnesota Vikings finished with 7 wins this season. The Dallas Cowboys, the New York Giants, the San Francisco 49ers finished with 6 wins. The Detroit Lions, the Carolina Panthers, the Denver Broncos finished with 5 wins on the season, and because of that, they will have top 10 picks in the draft. The Philadelphia Eagles and the Bengals, the teams that tied each other, the only 2 teams that tied each other this year, finished with the 5th and 6th pick in the draft. The Atlanta Falcons and the Texans finished 4-12, so they get the 3 and 4 pick. The Jets finished with the second worst record in the league at 2-14, and the Jaguars finished with the worst record in the league in 1-15. And this is how the NFL shapes up. So, with that said, all these teams, great season, but you're done. You're done with. Now we just got to focus on the 14. And with that said, I want to thank everyone for listening to all 11 and a half minutes of this piece. I hope all is well, and peace out. I'll catch you with another episode following this.